Well, good morning, everyone. How are we? All right, love to hear it. So, I have some reminders I need to read out before every session, so you're going to hear this probably 4 or 5 times today. This session is being recorded. It's going to be made available to our online students in the social work program. So, online students, if you're watching this, hello. Like, it's not today when you're watching it. So you also have to obtain CEs if you want that. To do that, you'll be sent an evaluation link after today, or at the end of today. Please complete that evaluation and request your earned CEs. Within 30 days, you will receive that CE certificate. All right, so the reason you're actually here is for this session. The session title is AI and Social Work. Our presenter is Hank Cecil. He's at LCSW. Hank Cecil is the owner of Starship Care, LLC, and is a quality practice advisor at WellCare Health Plans. He's a therapist, quality director, HIPAA compliance officer, information technology works in information technology at Four Rivers Behavioral Health. He holds an MSW from the University of Kentucky, along with degrees in IT and cybersecurity management from Murray State University and health informatics from Northern Kentucky University. Currently, Hank serves as chair of the Kentucky Board of Social Work and leads the Social Work Licensure Compact as its chair. You know, something I hope Indiana does in the new future, but that's a whole other story. So, without further ado, I will pass it over to Hank, and we have myself and Dr. Wen with a microphone. I don't know where he is. This is awful light right in his direction. So if you have a question, you can raise your hands and...
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I don't have anything prepared for this session. It's just be open questions. Just do want to touch base a little bit on two things. Starship Care, when I had to come up with a name for my business, old Star Trek fan. That's where that came from. CBS didn't like it when I tried to copyright it, but I said it's Starship Care, and if Elon Musk can use Starship, why can't we? That's the argument from my attorney. Anyway, so it got granted. So the other one is that one of the things I wanted to, for you all to that I didn't want to get in too much in the presentation, but one of the dark sides of AI is the fact that the data centers use a lot of energy and water resources, and data centers that have been built by companies from the U.S. in the global south and other places really have taken advantage of workers. They don't get paid. They get paid very, very little. A lot of the classification stuff that went into these systems was built on, I would just call it slave labor, which unfortunately is the history of our country and our system. So you have to know that as kind of the dark side of it. So when it comes to justice issues, we cannot forget that. It's one of those things a lot of AI promoters or whatever don't want to talk about, but I wanted to make sure you knew that piece because it's the rest of the story, so to speak. So a lot of stuff that we use and create in this country, we've depended upon other places, and near where I live, they're going to be building a data center, and there's already some issues with among people. It's like, they ask me, I go, yeah, it's going to take water, it's going to take electricity. If we are on the same track with electricity, we will double our need for electricity by 2030, which I don't know who's going to pay for all that. So anyway, all right, enough for the dark side. Questions? And remember, I can't see you because of the lights, so I have to depend on whoever's got the microphone. So sorry. So I can't see you. So raise your hand so we can get a microphone so we can hear the question and my attempt to make an answer.
Hi.
Hi.
With Oracle's acquisition of TikTok this time last year, and with its strong ties to our government and current administration, we have seen the limiting of shared information on the platform, specifically to resistance movements. And with the current quiet acquisition of HBO, Paramount, CNN, the US Air Force, that is utilizing Oracle for AI-driven cloud-based operations, as well as Medicaid and Medicare, what are the potential problems and/or ethical issues social workers may be up against when they try to advocate for their clients on a micro and a macro level?
Ooh, serious. Yeah. Oracle, not to mention Planetour, others are the same doing. We have a real issue when it comes to the public programs because of the risk of discrimination for with the data that's trained on and how it's going to be used and who makes those decisions about benefits. It's going to be extremely important for us to ask those right questions. Who is doing this, and what are the downsides as well as the benefits? What is that balance between the downsides to patients? What patients are being left out? Because it's very, very possible that patients will get left out because there's decisions made by those who really don't share our values. So we will have to be at the table when decisions are made to implement systems. Who, is it Oracle? Which company is doing it? And where did it come from? What's the model are they using? As we say, the frontier models as they are right now, they need to evolve to a way to make things fair for people. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. See something? Whew.
Okay, so in your presentation, you were talking about the number of individuals that were using like ChatGPT to, for counseling or advice, and talking about how that can be very useful to them, and like 95% of the information they may get back could be accurate. So I'm wondering about informing individuals about the privacy around ChatGPT. So I'm wondering, even if you teach them how to enable the privacy settings, is it really private? Like, do we need to be warning people about that information is still going to be out there?
Yeah, you do have to say that. There is a privacy setting in all of them, so you can turn it on. And basically, what it says is not going to use your conversation in its training data. But if you it's where if you want to dig into it, look at their disclosure about privacy, and that's where you'll find out that pretty much they may not use it in the setting for privacy for training purposes, but they may still be retaining the data. Those things change over time, so doesn't mean if what's said today will be what will be there the next day, because they can update those. So you do have to really dig into those privacy things and read them. They're not easy to read, sorry. They're legalese stuff that is meant to kind of basically make us turn it off or not read it. So for our patients, you really have to dig in and read it, and then help, again, in plain English, or plain whatever language they're using in their language, to explain to them what the risks are of using it, so that they know they have a choice of whether to continue to use it for personal stuff or not, because there can be leakage out of the system. There's no perfect, at least I haven't seen one yet, that can say it can contain the data and nobody else has access to it. So that's the risk. Yeah, it's important for us to know that, so that we can help them. If they choose to continue to use it, we want to help monitor those risks for them. Does that help?
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
So if that data could be out there, who, in your opinion, who do you think could potentially access it, and how could it be used in a negative way to impact the user?
Well, it depends on how does the company sell the data. Oftentimes they do. Not all of them. So yeah, that's where it's reading, knowing whether they sell the data, who has access to it, whether or not someone's personal emotions, feelings, viewpoints are then sold to a data broker or something like that. It's, I mean, I do it too. I mean, it's kind of like you get a new app and you just kind of skip past the disclosure things, the terms of agreements and that kind of stuff. We all do that. But with these things, you need to really stop and dig into it and read it. And that's where it's like, it's important for people who do care, do provide provision of care, and we're going to develop this into something that is useful. We move away from the general public chat GPTs and Geminis and Copilots and all those into more of a custom design thing so that we can retain the data and tell our patients we don't sell it and we're not going to misuse it because, and again, there's security protocols that have to be there in order to keep it from being leaked. That help?
Thank you.
Okay, sure. Sure.
Hi, I'm going to touch on something you mentioned during the main conference session. What is, just from a processes, nuts and bolts standpoint, what's the best way that you like to frame your follow-up questions to any potential response you've gotten to determine any inherent bias, accuracy, to make sure that it's not just telling you what it thinks you want it to tell you and just really truly give you more accurate data? How do you frame those questions when you do a follow-up response or kind of cross-examine the question?
Yeah. Sometimes you just ask it very directly. I think you're BSing me. I mean, it understands BS, by the way. You say, I think you're just telling me what I want to hear. Argue with it and go, you're wrong, even though you think it's right. Argue the other side. Become the devil's advocate, so to speak, and watch what it does. Does that help? In a sense, it's hard to know there's no real perfect problem, but you use your own instincts with how to argue and your own values and go, I'm going to argue this, but I'm going to take the devil's advocate approach and argue the opposite. Or you make them, the GP, argue as a counter to you. I'm going to take this position, you take the opposite position. And let's argue.
So kind of go old school debate style.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like in one way you know it's not a human being, but you're going to treat it like that. You're going to make peace with it because you're going to go, and again, compliment it. It likes compliments. Oh, you did a great job on that because it tells us that was a great insight. It compliments us. You do it back. Oh, that was wonderful. Continue down that line and then put a zinger in. That's our human. It doesn't know we're going to do that, but it will learn that you do that very often. Then you have to, your next time that you argue with it, you have to be a little more clever to get it. But again, you'll find if you do it, you'll figure out what it's doing. Now, the biggest downside, in one sense, maybe an upside, who knows, over a period of time, it learns you. And then it's just you talking to yourself. I've used it enough to know that. Okay? Don't fall into that trap. You say, you're just using the same profile that you think I am. I'm not that. Over time, you can ask the chat to tell you, what do you think about me? How would you describe me? And it will give you one. How about that? But is it accurate? That's where you have to balance what you're telling it to the sense of, are you giving away too much of yourself into this system? Goes back to the other question about the data of other people using. We have to be careful of that ourselves. That help?
I have a follow-up question unless anybody else has something.
Sure.
Just from a platform version standpoint, what's the easiest, most user-friendly that you prefer as far as being able to customize those type of behaviors and response types on the front end, Claude versus OpenAI, that kind of thing, that you've found that's most helpful for more complex care plan type scenario kind of brainstorming?
Yeah. How much are you willing to pay? There's one called Custom AI is one I've used, but it's a little pricey. And it uses what's called a RAG system, retrieval augmented generation, which is where you want to go with this kind of stuff, because it again helps you capture. I only want you to focus on this, not on the general world, to help you with that. Does that kind of make sense a little bit? Because that's where you, but there's a lot of them out there that, like say, Custom GP is AI is one. You can ask the AI to give you give me a system that's more based on a RAG, use the acronym, and it'll spit out several for you. You can look at them, but they can get pricey because they are more specialized. And that's what we need to use, because if you're gonna, and then it goes back to the other question too, make sure you read the disclosures and terms of agreements and stuff like that before you start using it. That's why I'm hoping companies that are, for our kind of work and stuff, there are some more now and more working on using systems that are closed in. Stanford is a good place to go. Stanford University, they have an AI program that I think they're really on the right track on doing this stuff, and they're developing a lot of good stuff. And I hope that they will be able to give it to us without too much of a high price. But again, AI systems have to generate. When you're using AI, it uses tokens, and there's so much cost pennies per token, and you're only allowed so many tokens per API and all that good stuff. So it gets into cost. And so the more complex questions you ask, the more more tokens it needs to use, hence the higher cost. So, and then anyway, that's the economic side, but that's the technical side of it too, because it takes clumps of text and the math, it creates this token thing that then can be used in the context. See, AI, the generative AI, which is what we're talking about mostly, is only one piece of AI, but it's the piece we use. So what is like GPT is generative pre-trained transformer. The transformer thing was the biggest thing that advanced this whole system for us to use, is because it was a way to put the language in that we use, mainly started with English, getting better, going into other languages, to put it in context. Because we know we say a word or something, it means different if we're in a different context. So that's why you have to know how that model is set up and what context is it using. We need a context that uses our values and stuff, not a context that uses the internet. And that's the difference that we have to make. That help? I mean, try. Bright lights.
I'm curious to know, some of us are kind of maybe approaching retirement, and I've somewhat resisted this movement and thought I might just stay in my space and kind of float to retirement and not have to embrace these pieces. But I'm curious to know your opinion about, is that ethical to do that if I'm within maybe 5 years of being done? And number two is, as things evolve in our profession and new research comes available, and if we choose not to incorporate that into our practice, in essence, we may have some ethical pieces of similar best practices. I'm curious to know if you think eventually AI will be a best practice, and if we're not using it, are we in essence potentially in an ethical dilemma there? And then another, on top of that, any recommendations you would have for us who help coach interns in the field, just the best things you would recommend we do to help teach them how to use this in the future?
Wow, okay, ethical dilemma. Because we got two different spectrum. Our students are going to be in a world that if you don't use it, you're going to be left behind. You won't be competitive. And all the agencies will expect you to know how to use it and use it responsibly and competently. That's one end. for like you and I on the other end, we kind of have a choice. We don't have to do this because it's not really a best practice just yet. And we have to keep in mind ethically, maybe it won't be. I don't know. That's the hard part. We have to kind of prepare for it because it seems to be so ubiquitous and so rolling along and inevitable that we have to be prepared to do that. But we have to make the choice at one end of the spectrum. Hey, I don't think I'm competent enough to incorporate it in my practice. And I still have patients or cares that I can do and services I can do that I don't have to use it. So we have to be careful not being compelled to use it when we have to make that choice for us. But like I said, it's not quite to the best practice level yet, but it looks like that's where it's going. So our students have to be ready for that world because it's almost like if you don't know how to use it and whatever, it's going to become an expectation and a standard, and how we balance that. Does that help? Did I get all your question?
Kind of piggybacking off of that, I would work at an agency that just recently got AI to help with note and documentation writing, which I think you had said during the your keynote that it is kind of life-changing in the sense that it helps me with my note timeliness, and I work at a community mental health, so the encounter requirements are kind of high. I guess I'm wondering more with the ethical parts of it. How do we balance like the requirements of our job and our job descriptions with also like the ethical parts of our ethical code of social justice, environmental justice? And if we start to see our clients be impacted by these data centers being put in small towns?
Yeah, good question. Is one we have to keep in mind. I kind of the analogy I'm going to use is sort of like when electronic medical records came in. That's a huge workflow change for everybody, patients as well as providers, and all that. And there was, and we all probably, I know our agency had to go through a couple of different iterations and whatever. There's, fear of job loss. There's, how is this helping? What's it cost? Does everybody have to use it? And it ended up being, of course, basically everybody did, or you couldn't work there. Is that right? So it's kind of like, I don't know whether, I know that this system, we have to be very, very intentional on how it's done. If an agency rushes in to do it without asking the right questions, they may end up with a system, and we may be working in a system that is, not just because they didn't ask the right questions. They're using biased data because nobody asked that question. So I think it's going to be it's going to have to be very intentional. And our challenge and the way we do things in this country is we usually like to rush in too quickly. And I'm hoping that agencies take time and not just take the hype, ask the questions. Take our values and ask the question. Where's the data center? What is it doing? It isn't, do we know that? Do we need to disclose that? The companies aren't going to want to tell you that. That's just straight up. So you have to they want your business, but you want the answers. So you have to insist on getting the answers before you buy the product. And that sometimes administrations don't like to take that step. So that's going to be our challenge, to be in the system to go, no, I need to ask this question. I need to know this answer. And that might sound really hard-nosed, but it is. How do I know? Because I got to get it from the company who's put it. Tell me what model you're using. Tell me how it's working. Tell me what that is. What's the security? How is that working? Where's your data center? If it's in Africa, see what I mean? That's how we follow it out. And that's going to be a huge challenge for us to do that. It's not going to be an easy task. Yeah, I wish it was, but it's not going to be easy because we're going to get resistance to learning that because they're going to know automatically we're going there. We're going to go, and we go, well, yeah, need to know that. Make sense?
Yes. How would you say, so if you have an agency that does give that pushback and you have the AI companies who are giving that pushback, how do I, as just, a therapist in this large community mental health, advocate for that?
Right. We have to work through our administrations. We have to find someone, and we use our age-old thing. Find somebody that's sympathetic to our values. Find a social workers in the administration. Go, okay, we have the same code. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
You're on a different level than me, but it's the same code. How do we do the values? Sit down with them one-on-one and go, hey, I have this concern. I heard this schmuck from Kentucky tell me that. I mean, throw me under the bus. I don't care. You have to, I mean, you have to, I educate